easy day of working on my top 10 most vanilla hardest exploits in WoW Sucks massive crits video, thank you Google keyword suggest, when Blizzard go and fuck my schedule right on up by finally dropping some official patch notes, which means, ladies and gentlemen, that World of Warcraft patch 7.2.5 is here. And depending on when you watch this video, it might even be live. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, there's no way I have the energy for 7.2.5 right now because I still haven't got over patch 7.2, which is, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, okay, the biggest patch in the history of World of Warcraft ever. 7.2 is so big that Adam Richman wants to eat it. And I know there's no way that you could possibly have finished all of the incredible content in 7.2 yet, and wish you had just one more week to farm nether shards, but tough shit, because 7.2.5 is bringing a whole load of new stuff to get into, and that's what we're going to talk about now. So join us as we guide you through the top 10 new things coming in patch 7.2.5, okay? Go, 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 go. Just like 7.1.5, this patch is bringing a whole new smorgasbord of big, juicy class balance changes, but if anything, 7.2.5 selection is even bigger, even saltier, and even more difficult to stomach, as Blizzard looks to turn those charts upside down, or at least, you know, scrape some of the shit off the bottom. If you want a proper in-depth look at the upcoming changes, then you need to watch our 7.2.5 class guide videos, but it's safe to say that whatever spec you play, you are probably going to see some changes, except feral druids, obviously. Sit down, feral druids, no one's talking to you, okay? No one's ever talking to you, feral druids. You just go back into your corner where you can sit quietly doing no DPS and fucking liking it until we decide that you actually exist, okay? Good cat. Now, a lot of this is going to be just numbers balancing, but some classes really are seeing sweeping changes, namely Destruction Warlocks, whose shard generation is getting completely revamped, Discipline Priests, who are basically turning into shit resto druids, Guardian Druids, who might actually be able to die sometimes now, and Subtlety Rogues, who are seeing substantial changes, so they are no longer suboptimal, but sublime, sorry. Ooh, and good news, Fire Mages. No, only joking. Ah yes, the news we've all been waiting for, am I right? I mean, surely in the list of things that you've been hoping for against hope recently, new legendaries in patch 7.2.5 were right on up there, just behind a fungal toenail infection and a Scouting for Girls reunion tour. Well, good news, legendary lovers, because your prayers have been answered and new legendaries are coming. But these are Legos with a twist. The new legendaries being added to the game right now are based around existing talents. So for example, there's a new Discipline Priest legendary, Shoulders, that has a chance to grant you power infusion for a time when you use Radiance, which is actually really, really cool. There's also a whole new batch of legendary rings for every class in the game that will also award you with an extra talent, allowing you to essentially have 2 talents on one row, making you almost as multi-talented as George W. Bush. Not just a fantastic orator, but also a gifted painter, like proper gifted. And this is a really interesting new approach to legendaries, I think. Basing them around existing talents means everyone should be pretty familiar with their effects already, and will presumably make them a bit easier to balance raids around as well. Added to the fact that the item level of legendaries is now going up to a whopping 970 means that it is exciting times for our random orange friends. Although still no word on when we'll be able to equip 3, but come on, don't be greedy. Now, of course, solid group content in the form of dungeons, raids, player hubs and whatnot is all well and good, but it's nice when we also have a solid dose of RPG in our MMORPG, in the form of single-player story campaigns and scenarios. And in fairness, this is something that Legion has already delivered on up to this point. After all, who will ever forget the triumph of the Broken Shore and the Legion Fall campaign? Oh, the times we had. Oh, do you remember that amazing bit where we had to go and do some world quests? I was on the edge of my seat wondering what was going to happen next. Oh, and that bit where we had to farm shit from the Centenax. That blew my mind. I mean, I didn't want it to end, and at one point I thought it never actually would. And 7.2.5 brings even more story than that, away from the main action of the Broken Shore this time, that we will get to play through in a couple of different scenarios involving Magni Bronzebeard. He's the one that's made out of diamond and says that Azeroth is talking to him. But don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything here, but yeah, he's still made out of diamond and Azeroth is still talking to him. Now, it does look like this scenario hasn't actually made it from the PTR into the final patch notes, but I'm going to include it here anyway, because I'm sure it's going to pop up at some point soon. It's called Azeroth's Warning. I've already said too much. and Chromie, everyone's favourite time-travelling, cosplaying, fan-arting, slash-ficking gnome dragon gnome. Now, whereas Magni's scenario is essentially the same sort of thing as that little pre-7.0 patch that we had with him in Ulduar, the Deaths of Chromie, as it's called, is a lot more involved and has a good few hours worth of gameplay at least, taking in, as it does, numerous locations and enemies and other characters that we've been waiting on for a while now in this expansion, and being essentially impossible to complete on your first run through, as it sees the player repeating the last 15 minutes of Chromie's life, Groundhog Day style, making incremental progress each time in an attempt to work out who's behind her untimely demise and stop it happening. As a scenario, it actually bears more comparison to the Withered Army training than anything else, but don't worry, because it's so much more interesting and fun than Withered Army training, I promise. I know that's not really saying much because appendicitis is more fun than Withered Army training, but look, it's genuinely innovative and genuinely really good fun, okay? Oh, and as a side note, a nice little touch is that it's set in the future, so your character gets scaled up to level 112 and item level 1000. I said we were going to get to item level 1000 this expansion, and I was right, which I think now makes me the world authority on WoW and never to be doubted again, just saying. Mythic Plus is, in my opinion, one of the big fat wins of Legion, even if it is more Diablo than Deckard Cain cosplaying as the Butcher at a Diablo-themed party which is being held in a real money auction house. But whatever, Mythic Plus is a bona fide hit and people love it, so obviously in 7.2.5, Blizzard are going to totally fuck with it. We got whole videos on the Mythic Plus changes in 7.2.5, but essentially they boil down to this. The top level of loot will now drop from plus 15 dungeons instead of plus 10. Mythic Keystones will not deplete if you fail to complete a timer. Instead, you'll get a key one level lower. There will only ever be one chest at the end of a run containing AP and 2 items between the group, plus an extra item if you complete the timer. Plus, from level 16 upwards, an ever-increasing chance to earn extra items on top of that, to the extent that running a plus 20 gives you 5 items if you beat the timer. Now, to say opinion is split on these changes is a bit like saying that Mike Pence probably won't be going to Pride this year, and overall there is going to be slightly less loot sloshing around, but the idea is that we should see less players farming keystones below their level, making it easier for lower eye level players to get into groups, as well as encourage higher end players to push higher keys, both of which would be good things. It'll be interesting to see if it turns out that way, or if Blizz have taken something beautiful and ruined it with pointless tweaks like it was pretty much any Sonic game in the last 10 years. Nostalgia is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Like, when I think back to my school days now, I remember it being one long summer of mountain bikes, snares, and Dungeons and Dragons, like Stranger Things with all the scary monster bits taken out, rather than the endless nightmare of fights, bullying, and shit haircuts that it actually was. Like Stranger Things, if it was only the shit scary monster bits. But if you miss the good old days, then don't worry, friends, because Blizzard has got you covered in Legion. Not only have you got Illidan and Demon Hunters and Resurrected Tier 6 sets, but 7.2.5 will also see the introduction of time-walking raids. The idea is that eventually every Time Walking Week event will have its own Time Walking raids to go with it, but 7.2.5 is kicking things off with the Black Temple, the iconic, not quite final raid of the Burning Crusade. They kind of did this before with the Molten Core Anniversary event shitshow, which was terrible. 40 random players dying forever, but importantly, Black Temple will scale for between 10 and 30 players, so you can run it in a group of your choosing. And it can't be that hard anyway, because whatever happens, you're going to have to be able to do it in one night, because it's a Time Walking event. You can't come back and try again the week after, because it won't be there. And of course, if you really want the proper BC experience, you'll turn your graphics settings down as low as they'll go, set your max FPS to 20, unbind all of your keys and whack some killers on the stereo before you log in. But there are non-nostalgic reasons to run Black Temple too. In the PTR, it was dropping level 900 loot, which is pretty tasty, and 2 words, people: transmoggable warglaives. There are a ton of smaller things getting added to the game in 7.2.5 that deserve a mention too, so let's round them up here. New micro holidays. It feels a bit disingenuous to say that these are being added in 7.2.5 because really they're just happening in 7.2.5, which is not quite the same thing. And some of them not even then. Like, you thought Broken Shore time gating was bad? You're probably going to have to wait until October for the Great Gnomeregan Race. In the meantime though, we have the Auction House Dance Studio event, the Moonkin Festival, and the genuinely awesome awesome trial of style. It's a transmog competition between you and 5 other players where you all vote for the winner, which will be me, obviously, because I've got a mooncloth robe, and that automatically wins. Holiday items will now be transmoggable while that holiday is happening, which means you can raid wearing your Wintervale sweater or elegant dress, and you definitely should. The PTR data mining seems to be hinting that there may be a quest line cropping up which allows us to get Invincible's Reigns, the iconic, infamously rare mount drop from Arthas in ICC. At this stage, there's no way to tell if this is something that's actually going to happen, or if Blizzard have just included it in the data to piss everyone off, because if I was a dev, that's totally what I'd do, by the way. There's a new pet battle dungeon, the Deadmines. By all accounts, the first one was really good and a decent challenge too, so it's awesome to see new pet battle content happening in 7.2.5. I, for one, am really looking forward to hearing about it from players that actually do pet battles, because, you know, fuck that shit. But yeah, awesome. Oh, and there's a very welcome brand new pickpocketing quest line to pick up from the Rogue Order Hall, which will turn into a weekly quest when you complete it, because, you know, class fantasy. Yes, I know, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the new Tome of Sargeras raid was coming in 7.2, what with 7.2 being called the Tome of Sargeras, and technically it is 7.2 content, but you know what? If it looks like 7.2.5 and it smells like 7.2.5 and it happens after 7.2.5 has come out, I'm just going to go ahead and say it's 7.2.5 content instead. But wherever you want to place it, you know it's going to be good, because frankly, raids always are. And in Tome, we finally get to push the Legion off our little planet, tackle Kil'jaeden, the motherfucking